Okay, welcome to the podcast, everyone. Today I have a special guest in a very dear client or old client of mine,
OG.
Chloe Avanessian.
You got it right.
How's
There
that
you
for the last name pronunciation? But a little bit of background and context to, I guess, Chloe's story, which I'll get you to tell everyone a little bit more about before. But I suppose for those that have paid attention to my content or listened to the podcast, understand that I guess a turning point or a pivotal point for me getting into the industry was being witness to two young, beautiful women that I cared about experience, I suppose, mental health suffering brought on by, eating disorders. And that's where sort of my passion and interest really came into the fitness space to, discover a little bit more about what I could do in my expertise to have a positive impact. And I guess that's why I hold the time that we've had together and experiences so close to me, because in a way, Chloe, you really got to probably provide me the greatest sense of fulfillment out of almost anyone I've ever worked with, due to the time we spent and where you were and where you are now. It's pretty remarkable and it's pretty special.
Definitely. It was a life-changing experience, to say the least.
Yeah, so why don't we get into that story a little bit, Chloe, and tell people, I suppose, about how we met, when we met, and
So, I guess I don't even know how many years it's been now, probably 5 years ago. I was 18,
I'd say at
19.
least 5, yeah.
I was stuck in a rut. I was still in denial, but I knew I needed help. And I was a very stubborn person back then, still am, but I knew I wanted someone with expertise and I guess a similar view on health, or should I say a holistic view on health. Did a bit of research, went through many different PTs and they just didn't gel well with me. And
A lot of this will be new information to me too, because I haven't even asked you about it,
I know.
But continue.
It's actually funny to rehash it all. But Bridget, shout out to Bridget. I went to uni with her. We both dropped out, but we went to uni together. And she worked for you at your previous gym.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just was like, for some fucking reason, I was like, I want to work with this guy. That sounded condescending, you know what I mean? I was just very, I don't know what it was, call it whatever, but I was very tunnel visioned with it. And I remember being told, like, you were quite busy, so you weren't really taking on clients. And I kept hassling you, actually. So you didn't answer my first email. So
Didn't I?
No, then I got onto Bridge.
Asshole.
I got onto Bridge and I was like, can you make this happen?
There's probably 100 other people listening going, I got the same thing.
And then anyway, because she was working at the front desk, pulled a few strings, but like kind of
Gave me some background.
Yeah.
Gave me some context, yeah.
and we got on a phone call.
I do remember our first phone call. I don't remember exactly what was said, but I remember it being quite heartfelt.
Yeah, and we had a very long conversation. It wasn't really a consult. I don't know what it was. It was a very long conversation, and I still had 2 PTs to choose between. I saw the other one first. It was all right.
More stuff I didn't know.
Then I went to you, and I was like, no, fuck, I need to do this. I felt like you understood psychologically what training meant for me, especially when for me, it was something that was, I don't know, you could call it therapy or meditation. I remember you used to call it that, actually. You would always be like, when you train, you go to kind of a dark place and it's almost meditative.
Well, we discussed a little bit about how to use some of the negative emotions in your life and sort of somewhat, use them to your strength.
Yeah.
And actually channel it
For
in
sure.
that environment
Yeah.
to make it work for you.
Exactly. Train harder and smarter, not longer and more, was kind of what you taught me.
Yeah, well, I mean, given the state that you were in, it was actually very brave of you to be as vulnerable as what you were straight off the bat to me, because I know that wouldn't have been easy.
Guess I just, like, as simple as it is, felt like I could trust you. which wasn't something that comes easy for anyone that's had mental illness or an eating disorder, especially. But I just felt like you got it. And you never pushed me. It was funny. I think you planted the seeds, but you were never someone who was like, I'm going to write you a meal plan. I'm going to make you do this. You knew I would come to you when I was ready, because the first couple of months, probably the first half of the year, you never told me to do anything in terms of nutrition. You just kind of got to know me as a person. We would train. And then one day I was like, looked in the mirror and I was like, I'm quite skinny. I want to talk to Jack about this. And you never made me feel alienated, or it was funny. We both knew about the eating disorder, but it wasn't something that we like overtly brought up.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And we took before photos, which I thought I looked fine. Funny looking back.
Crazy looking back though, isn't it?
Skin and bones.
You look like a little Ethiopian with a distended stomach.
Dead set. Where are we now? In terms of that, we just kind of slowly, I mean, we were working together through an evolution of our lives both went so many different directions. I mean,
a lot was changing.
I mean, at one point we were training out of random gyms. I remember before Jungle opened up. Yeah. So
you were the first person who actually ever did a training session in Jungle when we didn't even have any lights. We had, one of my mates had a flood lamp, like a little floor flood lamp that we plugged into the couple, and a squat rack. Yeah. And where the new bars and the plates, there wasn't even a rack. They were just sitting on the ground. And you were the first person to ever come in and have a look at what the vision was going to become.
For sure. But I guess the most important thing that I learnt, and I'm still learning, but something you taught me through this experience, was not like eating disorders or eating more. You actually told me to just sit with my thoughts and emotions. I remember you would always tell me to ground myself, like force me to go to the beach and put my feet in the sand and just like meditate and breathe. And like, I don't know whether you want to call it a spiritual experience, but I learnt a lot. Who I am now was greatly due to that experience.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, just reflecting on my own, I suppose, choices of how to, help, try my best to help you in those situations, was just having that emotional awareness to, and it's still something that you have to do with every single client that you're probably doing yourself now. I think it really is a skill that can somewhat only be taught with experience, to know when to push and when to nurture. Yeah. And, the most important thing I thought at that time was to give you a safe space, to make you feel comfortable, to not feel judged, and to not be so focused on the thing that was actually the problem, which was the food. Yeah. And I didn't want you having a meal plan or counting calories, and we can do it. We'll talk more about that stuff in coming, because that was kind of almost just replacing one obsession for another. And just trying to get you into a more present and healthy practice of life, with including those things, whether it be just breath work, or whether it be reading, whether it be prioritizing your sleep, whether it be getting in barefoot with the earth and so forth. And it just was a really, really, really slow process.
Definitely slow.
But it had to be slow.
It had to be.
It had to be slow, because how much did you weigh back then?
Like 40
kilo if you were wet.
40, literally 40 something. I've never weighed myself back then, so I mean.
And did you make the decision not to weigh yourself because in the practice of doing so, perhaps it brought up negative self-internal dialogue and emotions for you, and then you decided, nah, that's not going to be good for me? Yeah. Do you weigh yourself now?
Yeah, no problem with that. Like, not in an obsessive way, more just to see. For me, it's like about gaining weight. Yeah. Which is so funny to be on the opposite side of the spectrum.
Yeah, and I think that's why I just get so excited about your story, is because it's literally completely flipped the script. And just makes me so happy to hear you bragging about how much food you're eating and that you're still hungry.
I eat more than a grown man. It's actually ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm actually a bit jealous of your appetite these days. maybe making up for all the years of not eating.
Dead set. But no, I definitely, another thing that I guess you taught me, something you used to always say, don't know if you still say it to clients, but stimulate, not annihilate.
Oh, yeah.
You say that to me all the time.
Yeah, well, I literally wrote some notes down 5 minutes before you came in. I thought, I don't think we need notes, you and I, like our conversational flow.
Yeah.
But I thought, hey, there's probably a few things that are worthy of actually a specific question. And one of the things I've got written down here was training habits in brackets. Cardio and volume was insane. Everything was high reps. Let's talk about that, because it wasn't just the high reps, but the cardio. You were doing at least 2 hours of cardio a day, probably. Yeah. And you would be doing insane sets. Like you'd be doing like 10 or 20 sets of leg press with, I can't remember, like a lot of reps.
I just didn't stop moving. I essentially woke up at like 5 a.m. and didn't stop till like 5 p.m. Not even exaggerating. I spent like 5 hours in the gym and then 3 walking. Like it was ridiculous.
I know.
And I would like lie to you at the beginning. And obviously as I got more comfortable
downplay
with
it a little bit.
I would tell you the truth. But yeah, it was funny because I think you understood the mentality between I wanted to push myself, but you channeled that and made it efficient. You channeled that and made that a 45-minute session. And I got that same satisfaction. I think through educating me, that's how you changed the way I thought.
Well, that's what I was about to say to you. Like I realised that in the mindset that you kind of possessed, it needed to be your decision.
Yes.
You couldn't be doing it because I was telling you to. And even if I was to tell you, until we had enough time and opportunity to build rapport, then my opinion kind of would have counted for fuck all. Yeah. Anyway, in your mindset. So just slowly over time, I would try and give you a perspective to look at things. And I think when we're looking at that there, that whole, that little one-liner there, stimulate, not annihilate, was, I suppose, getting you to understand the concept of adaptation to stress. And I suppose, I think I probably even called it like leaving cards up your sleeve for you to be able to play later. Because if we throw the whole kitchen sink at you from a terms of volume, then where do we go from there? Exactly. Because you can only train as hard as you recover.
For sure, definitely.
So tell me more about like your eating habits there. How have they evolved since then? Because again, I know that you were quite restricted in some of your food choices. Yeah. You typically only ate a lot of fish. I'm not sure if you still do that. But then, it was not uncommon for you to be doing things like eating an entire bag of carrots.
Oh, it was.
Or,
I can't believe
just
remember that.
snacking. Yeah, fucking oath I can. Or,
my digestion.
Or the nuts and everything. And I was just so concerned for how your stomach must have felt afterwards.
Oh, that was years of trying to fix that. But yeah,
why carrots?
Probably because it kept me full. And I was a very like obsessive eater. Yeah. I would get stuck on a food and it was funny. It took me years to undo. It'd probably only been like a year and a half since I've really undone that habit because I could go to the extreme, overeating a lot of the same food. But now I have a much more holistic approach. I mean, I don't restrict myself with anything. I do eat primarily like quote unquote good foods. But like if I do want to go out with my friends, I don't care. Yeah, I'll do that. I enjoy that. Because that's life. And you have to be adaptable. But no, I have a very well balanced diet. Obviously, we all go through our phases where we emotionally eat at times, but I've got a very food doesn't dictate there's no emotional connection. I'm not eating to look a certain way unless I have like a body goal, but it's not. Don't get caught up in that.
But again, your goal, regardless, like what you said these days, is more so orientated around growth.
Oh, 100%.
Rather than trying to get smaller.
Good luck trying to get me in a cut. That's all.
Do you think back then you were actually trying to get smaller?
No. I genuinely believed that I was eating enough to grow, which was even more fucked up.
Yeah, because I kind of always got that sense from you, even from the beginning, that regardless of what position you were in with your health and well-being, your intentions were always to get better.
Yes.
And to improve. You just were really misfiring.
Yes.
With the training and the nutrition,
Yeah.
Did you ever have well, I'm assuming no then based off your answer there, but did you ever have bulimic behavior?
No, I never did actually. Which was good. I was very extremist with my food, obsessive, compulsively with food, but never bulimic or anything like that. So it was just general anorexia, like under eating.
Yeah. So what did a normal day of eating look like for you back then? If you can remember.
I would...
Because do you get a bit foggy about some of those times?
A little bit.
Yeah.
But I remember eating like a little slice of avocado for brekkie and maybe like an egg. Maybe. I think you got me into eggs, so probably not. That was probably like my better days. Then like lunch was like this fish drowned. And when I say drowned in like vinegar. Don't know why. Like my gut was just... that's pretty much it with salad.
You had a lot of digestive issues at the beginning, which is no surprise.
Yeah. And then I basically kind of same thing for lunch, like fish and like a bit of kale kind of thing. And then I got into a phase where I was obsessively eating fruit, like ridiculous amounts. When I say like a whole box of like a kilo dates, like 3 mangoes, like it was just crazy. And again, my gut paid for it. So I think I just needed help. Like I knew that I wouldn't do anything unless someone gave me a direction. And like I trusted their judgment. I could see proof in the pudding because when you go for a PT, you also want to see their work. You want to see what they look like. Like it's kind of normal, especially with an eating disorder. You're a very visual person. And obviously not just that, like there was a personality thing there. Like I think at the end
you
of the
got to
day,
gel.
Oh, 100%.
You got to get along.
Even like with my own clients, like I always say, you have to gel with your coach. Like that's a massive thing. And I did with you. We just had the same sense of humor. Like you understood the way I worked, which was rare.
I think I never tiptoed around you either.
No, definitely not. So like I used to get there was a time in my life where I was seeing you twice a week and that was the highlight of my like week.
But let's let people know that though. Like I'm here in Melbourne in Prahran at the moment, but my old gym was in South Yarra.
Yeah.
And you were driving up from the Mornington Peninsula, so you were spending, two and a
2
half
hours
hours
traffic.
in the car twice a week at least to come and train with me.
Yeah.
For that 45 minutes.
At like 18.
Which was, again, hella dedication by you, and again something that I felt, quite flattered by really that you're willing to put that effort. But again, was one of the contributing reasons. Again, it's like, well, fuck, if she's going to be driving that far just to come and see me, I'm going to give her the best of my attention and advice that I can,
Which you did. Like you would sit down even for an hour or half an hour before our session and just talk to me about my mental health.
Yeah, but that never felt like work.
No.
And I think that's kind of like what you said, is that, you got to gel with your clients. Of course, we get clients that we're different in personality, and that's fine, and they're there for a job, and they respect your opinion and your expertise, and that can work. But when we look at from an ideal client relationship, you don't want to ever feel. Well, I know I don't ever really want to feel like I'm exchanging time for money. 100%.
For sure.
Now talk to me about in your discovery, I suppose, of your eating disorder. How long do you think it had been present for before you started to build awareness to its presence? Was that something that you had outside help with? Did you have family make comment on it? Did you have friends? How did it sort of, when did you sort of, how long was it around for before you decided that this is a problem?
Probably 15, 16, like real bad. Like I was actually more underweight than when I was with you. Nearly went to the hospital, kind of underweight. Went to visit a hospital with my mum and the psychiatrist. I can't even say that. Psychiatrist. He was a bit of an asshole. Basically told me that I couldn't do it without medication or by being at that institute. Said
you should go back and find him now.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I did for a short time. I put on the weight. I wanted to do things like in a healthy way. I didn't want to eat Maccas to gain weight, which was a lot of the way that a lot of nutritionists thought.
What?
Yeah. It was kind of like, eat this ice cream. And look, there's nothing wrong. I'm not here to like tell people how to eat or what to do.
No, but
that's
I'm just
not something that I
surprised
wanted to do.
that somebody who's titled a nutritionist is, I get it. You need to put on some weight.
Yeah.
But at that point, any food would have done it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be McDonald's.
Even psychologists
burgers.
were like that. I remember I walked through the room and she's like, would you eat a McDonald's cake type thing? And I was like, no. And she's like, you've got an eating disorder. And I was like, that's a very black and white way of thinking.
That's backwards.
And I didn't. And look, I grew up in a family where we eat good foods. So like it wasn't even an eating disordered thing. That was separate. And so I finally found a really good nutritionist. She helped me. She understood the way I wanted to do things and let me, because I'm the type of person, if you don't let me do things my way, I won't do it at all, which you kind of realized very quickly. So did that. When I got to 18-ish, 17, I put on weight.
Yep.
I thought I'd recovered, but I'd not mentally recovered. And that's something that was apparent when I met you, because I kind of relapsed. Not as severely, like I was probably like 36 kilos when I was the worst. With you, I'd probably gained another like 5, at least, something like that.
Yeah, I almost felt like you were 38 or something, maybe when we first started working together. But again, I can't confirm or deny.
I've got some old videos of us training, and it's scary.
I know there's some on your Instagram, the ones, the side-by-sides of when you're doing the T-bar rows, particularly, and even some of the ones that we've got of you doing the lateral raise, and I'm standing behind you. I was probably 10 kilos heavier then too, so the contrast made me feel pretty good about myself. But yeah, definitely, like I think, you know, you touched on it there, and I wanted to bring it up about the mental side of things because, you know, I think the eating disorder stuff becomes very obvious visually and aesthetically that there's a problem going on there, which is, you know, going to be detrimental to health and well-being, but perhaps what doesn't get enough consideration is what's going on upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, you know, again, I recall some pretty long conversations where, you know, you were, I suppose, become emotional because of the, you know, the anxiety and those kinds of things that you were wrestling with. Can you talk a bit about that?
For sure. I think, like, I can't generalize for all eating disorders, but I can speak from experience and having worked with people that also do have it. A very common thing is self-worth, not feeling good enough, being a bit of a perfectionist, and that leaked into food. I thought if I could
well, it all
control
stems
that,
from that kind of stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I thought if I could control the way I eat, the way I look, be good, quote unquote, I'm a good person. I'm doing the right thing. Like, obviously that's a very general, like there was more intricate things into 100%. The way that I thought. But I guess that's probably where it stemmed from. Yeah. And then it was a bit like a snowball effect. You get addicted to that. You're trying to be perfect in every aspect of it. You know, like eat less, great, even better. You're better than you were the day before. So that's kind of what it was. And I lost control over it. I knew that, like, that's not what I wanted. I'd look in the mirror and recognize that I was underweight. I would cry about it. I'd be so upset. I was like, I can't wear anything. I would put layers and layers, and I was always cold. I had no social life. I didn't get close to people because eating out was not something I could do. So yeah, you were probably my only friend at the time, to be honest. Like,
do you feel like people would like? Do you reckon you ever felt people like look and stare?
No.
Huh? You didn't notice?
Everyone was really good. Now looking back, I'm like, oh, people definitely would have known. But it was so funny. I was unaware of how bad it was. So I think, like, even though everyone knew, I didn't know that they knew. Because, like, I guess a really common thing with eating disorders is you try and hide it. So I thought I was doing a good job at hiding it, quote unquote. I would just say that I had allergies and that's why I couldn't eat.
But I can't help but laugh a bit because, like, you know, I still remember, like, you would have had the smallest bike shorts you could possibly buy.
God.
And they were, like, loose out the back of your hamstrings and ass.
Oh, my God. Literally. So I remember how big my legs were. They were pretty much as big as my calf now. Like, I've actually measured it because I know it would be like 2 full hands, and that's how big my thighs were at the time. And even, like, I could put 1 full hand around my arm.
I was about to say, I would have been able to fit my thumb and middle finger around your arm.
Yep.
Easy.
Yep.
No problem.
Easy. I could do it myself. So
what do you weigh now, roughly?
Nearly 60 kilos, something like that. And I'm like 5'1", so for someone of
you're
my
a midget,
size.
which is coming from me.
Definitely. So yeah.
But you're a pretty strong midget.
Yeah.
You've been, you know, you've pushed some big numbers on, you know, leg presses and belt squats and all those kinds of things when we've been training together. And again, It's just, I love just, you know, teasing some of the male gym population in that, like,
don't we all?
You know, you've got these boys in there that are, fucking carrying on like turkeys
Yeah.
with 2 plates aside or something like that. And then here I am with
Screaming their heads off.
little 50-kilo Chloe punching out 5 plates aside. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? How do you call yourself a man when you see that?
Yeah.
I know.
It's nice. It's satisfying for the ego. But yeah.
And you've found yourself into, I guess, the health and fitness industry as a PT yourself. I guess that's been pretty organic after sort of going through what you've gone through.
I honestly, to be honest, I used to have a vision board. You don't even know this. But I wanted to do what you did and work in the same kind of thing. I literally wrote that down.
After having sort of spent time together going through.
Yeah, I did that when you were working at Gripped.
Because what were you studying with Bridge when?
Exercise and sports science.
Yeah.
So I already kind of.
So you already had a bit of an interest in that space, but do you reckon that was motivated a bit by your already obsessions?
Yes, for sure. I wanted to know everything. Not that would have made a difference. I was an extremist, so it didn't really matter what I knew.
What were you about to say though?
I can't even remember. It's a goldfish memory.
So how long have you been in the industry for now, officially? Because I signed off your PT course.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, look at
I did work experience with you. I can't even remember.
I know.
3 years maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, you did.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did work experience with you at your old gym.
Yeah.
And then a bit here, I would say.
Yeah, and hopefully no one from the, whatever it's called. What's the Fitness Australia or something where you tick them off are listening to it. But I remember being like, Chloe, don't stress about that shit. I'm ticking it off. We've spent more hours together having these conversations.
Yeah.
And don't worry about that. That's all good.
Shout out Fitness Australia. But,
yeah. And talk to me about your experiences in the industry since you've been in it. What's that look like? Because you started out doing some PT stuff at Anytime Fitness, and now you've sort of transitioned with the guys at Limestone more into the online space. Tell me about the differences there and what sort of demographic you've found yourself working with, and I guess some of the lessons that you've learned along the way, how they're sort of, I guess, positioning themselves as assets within your artillery now.
Well, I'd say, to be honest, I only am now with Limestone because of you, because it was kind of a catalyst effect. Kyle,
Kyle Trainer.
told Reese, who owns Limestone.
Yeah, because what was the connection with Kyle and Reese?
They were business partners. They had like a pivotal conversations. They did that together.
Ah, that's right. He was the second guest or host on the podcast. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so Kyle, because Reese was looking for a coach, told him about me because he was like, well, Jack's worked with her, so if he, and even Reese said, well, if you've worked with me, I should be good. And yeah, so that's how I got into Limestone. And to be honest, like, it's just amazing, like being able to help people mentally, which is what it is. It's a lot of conversations because obviously I'm not PTing them in real life. Just being able to help people, whether they've gone through a shitty breakup, whether they're dealing with eating disorders themselves, whether it's their self-worth, like anything. It's just such a fulfilling job, and I can actually say that. And like I have a lot to thank, like due to you. Because I knew I wanted to do that. I knew I didn't, as soon as like, even I was a bit skeptic when I was about to kind of embark in my coaching journey. I didn't want to be just like other coaches. I remember telling myself like, the care factor you put into me is something that I want to put into my clients, because it can change a life, like being like that. You can either be just a coach and get people a body transformation, or you can be more than that, and that's important.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, we both started out as PTs, but I think it's a fairly safe thing to say that we've both probably ventured outside of the traditional boundaries of what you would probably consider a PT for sure. And I think, it is like if you want to just, be your everyday PT, then, you need to learn the basic shit and that's it. But I think everybody needs to, do it in their own way if they want to have some sort of unique offering, I guess.
For sure.
And I've said this in a previous interview, and you just reminded me of it kind of with something you said there, that like I don't work in the business of six packs, I work in the business of people.
I remember that.
Yeah.
You were coaching me back then.
Back then I would have been. And so much of that now sort of flows into other things that I frequently say about,
Yeah.
there's a physiological response to the psychological response.
Yeah.
So if we spend fucking 5 hours stressing about eating that piece of cake,
Yeah.
you would have been probably better off just eating the cake and forgetting about it.
Yep.
You know what
100%.
I mean?
And it's funny, much of what you've taught me, I say to my clients as well. Like,
What sort of clients are you working with?
mostly young women.
Yeah.
Actually, all young women.
Yeah.
So,
And
definitely.
what's the most common sort of finding with those girls that you're working with, and I guess challenges or obstacles that you're trying to help them overcome? Is there a few of them that are, which I'm sure they have come to you, because you're quite open and vulnerable about your history and past
Yes.
with eating disorder, which
Yeah.
I think is amazing and really brave, and again is what's giving people probably the space
Yes.
to be vulnerable in return.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, tell me a bit about your clients.
Probably the biggest thing they struggle with is eating.
Yeah, just getting enough in.
Eating enough.
From an appetite point of view or from a psychological point of view?
Psychological point of view, definitely.
And
Even when it comes to like,
do you think that's coming down to lack of understanding or education about food?
yes, yeah, and also the fitness industry.
Fitness industry's fun. I hate the industry.
Let's be honest. Like, I always say it. I'm like, I don't blame people for not knowing what to do. We've got all different bloody diets that we're supposed to be following, and it's like you don't know what's right and what's wrong. And it's like it's funny. Like they want to lose weight, and like you have to eat more, and they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And so it is about like I guess proof is in the pudding. I always say to my clients, I wouldn't make you do something I wouldn't do myself.
And that must help so much though that they can, the fact that you've gone from that to that, it's like, well, this is the journey I took.
Yeah.
Which when we talk about that, I guess what you're honing in on there is the fallacy of authority that exists in Instagram, with so many conflicting opinions, and then who to trust is determined or based off their following.
Yes.
Which can be really unjust.
Yes.
I suppose. So
yeah. And like I'll get clients that have been like, oh, I saw this online. Like, should I be doing this? Or like TikTok showed me this. Should I be doing this? And like
Love
it creates
those questions.
It creates anxiety too. People never feel like they're doing the right thing. And I think that's a good thing about having a coach, or like a good coach, is that you can trust them and don't have to sift through the information yourself. Yeah. Because that's hard.
Yeah, I think that's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yes.
Like I've sometimes had clients where they've got, maybe they want to start work with me, and then they've just done some blood work with perhaps their GP, and then they've also got a naturopath, and then they've maybe got their kinesthesiologist, and it's like, well, they're putting in their 2 cents over here, and they're throwing confusion to the wind, but they haven't been privy to the 10 hours of conversation we've had.
Yeah.
Hence why maybe they don't understand why it is that you're doing that. And I'm not saying that I'm always right and they're always going to be wrong.
Yeah.
But it can be really dangerous when you just got too many
100%.
voices, trying to put that piece together. And it kind of almost, that's where you sometimes got to put that your foot down in that conversation and be like, look, you've obviously hired me to do a job, and you've hired me because you trust me to deliver it to you.
Yes.
Then you need to actually give me the space to be able to do what you've hired me to do.
Exactly. Space and time. I think something I've noticed in my clients and just people in general, like, is patience is not, people don't realize that to get sustainable results, healthy results, it takes time.
Oh yeah, that's one of the best messages you could ever push. So, so many I've had a few clients lately, and I've obviously managed them and their nutrition and their health in the same way, I suppose, that I have with you, in playing the long game.
Yeah.
Establishing a good relationship with food and habits and consistency, and working on, mindfulness and your understanding of food, and looking at food as a form of loving nourishment and self-respect, and an investment choice, rather than just a calorie equation, looking at the micronutrient density within it. And, they've all come on board that for the same reasons. They've approached me because they resonate, or they like the way that all sounds. But I suppose the thing that perhaps we fight against now is the lack of patience that exists within society, but also definitely the fitness industry and its community, because, we're flooded with 8-week challenges where they're, sure, you starve someone, they'll lose weight. There's no fat people in a prison or a war camp. It works.
And muscle. So,
but, to get somebody to accept that any results that you achieve in a dramatic fashion in a short period of time are only going to be possessed temporarily.
Yeah.
And often at the expense of other lifestyle factors, including, cognitive function, mood, sleep quality, sexual health, all those kinds of things, digestive issues, blah, 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 blah. It goes on. So, the long story short that I'm trying to get to here is that they've said, they asked me a question, Jack, how long should it be until I start to see results?
Yeah.
And it's really, I wish there was a more definitive answer that I could give those people, but it really is a bit of a how long's a piece of string because, well, there's so many variables here that are contributing to that outcome, which is, okay, well, A, how long have you been doing it wrong for?
Yeah.
How long have you been consuming foods that, like, let's say if all they've maybe had a history of just tracking macros and they don't care what it is, and that's involved donuts and pies and pastas and all this shit that's either gluten-ridden or it's, full of linoleic acid and vegetable oils and these things. And we know that the half-life of those vegetable oils is longer than a year. So it's like that's going to take a long time for you to get out of your system. It's a bit of a snowball. You can't expect it to be rolling downhill and then just start pushing back in the opposite direction and get without resistance.
Or do they have PCOS?
There could be so many
What
things.
are their health issues?
Gut permeability, PCOS, mental health issues, sleep dysfunction. The list could go on forever. But it really, what I've observed anyway, is that it almost seems like they get nowhere for maybe even months. And then within the space of a month, everything just really changes for them, But it's impossible to predict when that month will kind of happen. But in my experience, that's how I've kind of seen it. When people make these, I don't want to call it a drastic change, but all of a sudden they, commit themselves to investing in their relationship with food and rebuild that relationship with food and manage to be consistent, that's when it starts to pay off. And then they'll be able to say, okay, if you're serious about making this a lifestyle thing, then this is how you got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Or
but when that penny does drop, it's like, then the trust is really built.
Yes.
Like it happens like, I see, I told you.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you happy?
Yeah.
They're happy. Fuck.
Yeah. Because, it's stressful as a coach too. You're like, you want those results, but you're also like, I'm not going to compromise on my values in doing it the quote unquote fast way just to get you a result kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and I'll even say to them, look, we could do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, we could do this, but this is what's going to happen. Yeah. And this is what you'll be facing after it. It's your decision.
Yeah. 100%.
So that's your biggest challenge, and just getting them to trust that eating more is okay.
Yeah, massively. Biggest challenge for sure, especially with young women. Like, oh my God, there's so many reasons why young women struggle with eating more.
Well, it's the message that I hate. It's the calorie deficit.
Yeah.
Everyone obsesses about it. But yet I see so many people increase their food and get leaner.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it doesn't make any sense then, does it, to the calorie deficit?
No.
What else have I got here for you, Chloe? What does the future hold for Chloe?
Oh, it's a big question.
Because you're obviously, well and truly embedded into the health and fitness space now. Where do you want to go with it?
I want to delve more into the mental health side of things. Because I guess, like, as much as I love exercise and I love, like, teaching people about that and eating well, I also love the psychological side of things. And I find that's where my passion is with my clients. I like caring about people and helping them. That's where my passion lies. And I think, being able to do things like this, a podcast, like that's definitely something that I'd like to do more of. Writing a book one day, something I'd love to do. Yeah. Even public speaking. That's probably the areas I'd like to delve into. Also just probably studying psychology.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Because by the sounds of it there, I was going to say to you, don't undervalue the power of your voice and the story that you've got to tell, because, the proof's in the pudding. But whether or not you actually wanted to go down the formal path of doing a psychology degree, which, I think it's sometimes, whether it be business, I did a business degree.
Yeah.
and I think 95% of it was a waste of time.
Exactly.
But,
yeah.
you know, I get it. Like, if you want to be a psychologist, you have to go and study psychology because there's due diligence there, you know, and responsibility.
Exactly.
So is that something that you would consider doing?
Probably not study like to be a traditional psychologist, probably more like personal development courses.
Yeah.
Because that way I can pick and choose and select the people that I'm learning from. Because I think that's massive. Like you can do you would know more than anyone. You can do any PT course. It's not going to teach you how to be a PT.
No.
You can hire someone who is a great PT.
Ain't that the truth though? So many people, how many people do you know that have done a PT course and then they're like, oh cool, I've got it done and now I'm just going to have clients coming out my ass.
It's so easy to be a PT.
It's just, that is like, literally not even a fifth of probably what running a personal training or health coaching business
for sure
is about.
Exactly. And that's the same approach I would take with the psychology route. And you learn from experience. You learn through talking to people as well. Like there's something to be said. Like some people like will teach you way more than a textbook can about psychology.
Oh yeah.
So definitely.
Is having a psychologist something that you've kept fairly consistent, or is it just something you've used more sporadically through times
I would love
of your growth?
I'd love to say I kept it consistent, but I usually go see a psychologist in a time of need where I'm like, oh shit, okay, you need to start working on this stuff.
So what do you do today to look after your mental health?
I listen to music. I find that very therapeutic. I journal.
Yeah.
I read. I spend time in nature. That's probably... I live on the peninsula, so the beach and being outdoors is very important to me. When I come to the city, I feel a bit claustrophobic when I stay too long. I need some kind of form of de-stress.
A bit like that myself, you know, even coming from Tassie, being
Exactly.
cold, but at least I was on an island, I was always close to water, so even moving to Melbourne, there are times where I feel a little bit claustrophobic in this concrete jungle, but I guess hence is why I've always lived at least southeast.
Yes.
And near the beach.
And that's exactly where I'd probably move to if I come here.
See, if anything, I see myself probably venturing a little bit further down towards your way.
I know, it's worth it.
Because the beaches are beautiful down there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the thing, like it's...
And there's a pretty big training community. But do you think that kind of area is lacking?
Oh, massively. If we had a good gym, people are healthy and fit there. So if we had a good gym, people would use it. I think that's, even myself, like I have to travel like at least 30 minutes away. Like jungle's an hour away from me. Might not be in a while. But yeah.
But I'm not saying anything more than that.
You can't. But yeah, no, definitely. It's a form of therapy for me being in nature. I find like even actually another strategy I think people is so underrated is getting off social media.
Oh fuck yeah.
Yesterday I spent the whole day like off my phone down in Queenscliff. It was amazing. Like don't go on your phone.
Yeah, I remember I took nearly 4 months off and during one of the lockdowns.
I remember that.
And it was so good for me because, you know, we live in this world of comparison and not necessarily that that's what was causing detriment to my well-being, but it was more just the constant negativity that was put in front of you. And, you know, your energy is where your attention
100%.
is. And my attention was so consumed within the negativity that was, you know, either lockdowns or conspiracy this or coronavirus this or,
100%.
you know, government, whatever. It was just coming out in every single which direction. And, you know, my normal routine, you know, is like wake up early, my alarm goes off, I go get in the shower, or I go downstairs and, you know, have something to eat, get to the gym early, I walk the dog, and then I come in and it might not even be, you know, 8 o'clock until I look at my phone, but I've been up at 4.
Yeah.
But when you don't have to actually get up and get out and go to bed, you're like, oh yeah,
tempting.
Open the phone, have a scroll, and before you know it, your whole day's fucked and you haven't even got out of bed yet. But even with that, like it's so addicting. It's I put up a post about it, I think, when I said that I was actually taking a break. And I think statistically it was those that were in the, you know, top quartile. So the top 25% of social media users had like a 300% greater likelihood of displaying clinical depression.
No surprise.
And, you know, at that time I would say that, you know, I was feeling pretty depressed. And that was, you know, multifactorial as mental health definitely is. And the strangest thing was just like, you know, I deleted the app, right? And just the sort of unconscious, what I caught myself, which I found so fascinating, was the unconscious decision to swipe up and then your thumb. It's muscle memory.
Yeah.
And I'm going to press the app and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
It's crazy.
I just put my phone down.
Yeah.
And I've just picked it up, and it just shows you how much
addictive.
We use that as distraction, which I guess in itself is almost a definition of anxiety, an inability to be in the present.
Yes.
You know, we're living our life in the future based off the past experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it was such a, I hated to have to come back.
Yeah.
But the only reason I came back was because the news of gyms was 100%. Reopening, and anyone who looks at my social media will typically see that 99% of the things that I post is business media.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do with my personal life.
Yes, 100%. Well, it's funny how we spend more time looking at other people's lives than living our own, and that's what social media has done.
I like that.
And it's crazy, like, that we do that. I did the same one of the lockdowns. I went off it for a week, and I would scroll through my photo album because I needed something to do, and I hated how much power my phone had over me. And I agree with you. I think if my business wasn't online, I wouldn't have Instagram, at least Instagram. I actually think, like, and this is a big thing to say, but I think my eating disorder was largely due to Instagram. If I ever have children, there will definitely be an age in which they can use.
Oh yeah, I've made similar comments in that I don't think there's ever been a more important time or as much pressure on parents to be a good parent. Yep. There is so much to be consciously aware of and protective of that didn't used to exist, you know? And, you know, I try really hard not to judge, but when you see, like, you know, 1-year-olds just given an iPad and staring at the blue light and what that's actually doing to their brain and their development. But, you know, even like you said there, like, when we look at social media, it's that world of comparison, and it's all bullshit because people will typically project and display the best version of themselves or something that's obviously, you know, far-fetched or, you know,
lighting, posing,
all of those kinds of things, editing, whatever it may be.
Yep.
And everybody kind of has this unrealistic expectation to look good or be happy all the time or, oh, look at this person's relationship, they're a power couple, all this kind of bullshit when it's there'd be so much going on behind the scenes that's 100%. Just not authentic and not shown. I think you've actually got that in your Instagram bio, don't you? Don't be aesthetic, be authentic or something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, I just think, like, something I say with my friends, I'm like, the more a couple posts on social media, the more I think that their relationship is in turmoil.
Oh, touche. Touche.
Like,
glad
it's just,
you said it.
Yeah.
You can cop the shit for that.
I know, honestly, I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have said that. But, like,
no, you're on my podcast, Chloe. You know you're allowed to say controversial things.
It's a generalization. Obviously, not everyone. But I just mean the message behind that is don't be deceived by what you see on social media.
There's nothing wrong with, like, we all appreciate compliments or getting some sort of validation or attention.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's fine. But as long as you have the awareness that any sort of selfie or something that you're doing there is essentially a representation of your seeking of attention or approval.
Which, when you're older, you can have that self-awareness, but at a young age, let's be honest, not much of us have enough self-awareness to be like, is my self-worth starting to get attached by
that's the thing that
media.
scares me is the sort of status that would come with social media. So I'm so grateful that I missed the boat.
Yeah.
Like when I was at school, I would get home from school and get on the home computer and talk on MSN to people. And like that was the extent of my social media. MySpace was maybe coming in just as we finished, but I was pretty slow on all the social media platforms. Getting on them. But to think of what it would be like amongst peers in a pretty volatile time in your life when people are moving from adolescence into adulthood and discovering who they are, to have this kind of this social status and this sense of entitlement based on the popularity. It's a popularity contest.
100%.
That they already have.
The grown adults do, which is kind of funny.
It's so toxic.
Yeah.
And I mean, how does that then set you up for moving into the real world in terms of, you know, your entitlement?
100%. Because if you're famous on that, you think when you probably are famous in real life, technically, people probably know you by your handle. And that's something.
Even that, isn't it? It's famous.
Crazy.
What is fame?
What
And
is-
to be famous these days, you don't actually have to do anything.
No. And
I find it very hard to give that respect, though.
yeah, I
Personally.
don't I don't look down upon that.
No, neither.
I don't think at all. Like, hustle and get your bread kind of thing. I just think for
Yeah,
the
good
young,
on you. Take your opportunities. Fuck no.
100%. Use it to your advantage. I just think for the young mind, it can be detrimental, and that's where my fear lies. So, yeah.
For sure. All that metaverse stuff that's getting discussed, it's a bit spooky, isn't it?
Scary. Like, we live in a crazy time.
It is. It is a really crazy time.
This past 2 years, what the hell has that been? You know, like it's been a wild.
It has. Chloe, thanks for coming on and sharing that story with us.
Thanks for having me.
It is, again, it fills me with joy to just see how well you're doing and how happy and the positive energy that you spread, and the fact that I've been able to play a little part in that journey is something that I'll never forget, and I feel very grateful for. So, again, thank you, darling, and I appreciate you coming on. You're going to go train now?
Definitely.
All right, very good. And we'll have a chat about some things off the audio. But thanks for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will talk to you soon.